Welcome to the bonus episode. I'm here with Kelsey, and Kelsey is a fellow 5-1. She's a manifesting generator and an emotional authority, which is why her main episode that you're going to want to hear is how does an emotional authority heal depression? And there is a reason she gets the word authority after the word emotional. She's here to be an authority in emotions, but not quite. And so am I, but in a very different way. I'm a wide open solar plexus, Kelsey. So when I walk in the
Okay.
room, yeah, not only do I immediately step into your emotional wave, I also feel that throat as well. So
Mm.
I'm getting to ride wherever you are right now.
I'm always riding, girl. So hop on the roller coaster.
Yes. And tell us about surfing. Like right now, if you were to think about your surf, where are you in your wave today?
Today, I'm surfing more of like a low tide, just like a more chill vibe after like this afternoon before I was recording another show and I think I was just like really like into the work vibes, super excited. And now I'm just like, I just spent like half an hour outside with my dog sitting on the ground. I'm just a little more grounded, a little more chill, still excited, but like in a more grounded vibe. So I'd
Mm.
say that's where I'm at right now.
And one of my favorite things I just got to peek at your chart is we have the same defined head Aja channel. So we both think the same way, which is going to be a super fun 5-1
Big
conversation.
thinkers, lots of ideas.
Yes. The shadow is psychosis, hence the depression we've both experienced in our lives.
hmm
The gift is inspiration.
Yeah, that I would resonate with both of those sides of the spectrum. I've experienced it all.
Same. And there's nothing more inspiring than healing yourself, which is something that you and I have in common. We just do it differently as a wide open solar plexus. I just needed to know that the only time I'm ever getting lit up in my solar plexus is if the 55 gate walks in the room.
Mm,
Otherwise, I am just swimming and whatever is here, and I don't need to do anything with it. It is good information. And sometimes I need to remove myself from the room because it's too intense, although I find that happening less and less, which means
yeah.
I'm able to really expand my capacity to step out of it because it is very intense.
Yeah. And have those inner boundaries of like, it's not mine. It's intense. I can feel it, but it's not mine. I don't need to do anything with it. Like you said, I don't need to dive into it. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to change it. I'm just here witnessing.
Mm. So then looking at your chart, I imagine that trying to have to prove yourself was what was causing your depression.
Well, that has caused me a lot of struggle in my life. I think it does tie into the depression in a way because I was training my whole life to be a professional ballerina and then I got injured right at like the pivotal moment where you have to like really commit, like in your later teens. And so that was part of the catalyst, but there were other things involved too. But yeah, that's definitely been a struggle for me my whole life. And even till recently, just becoming more aware of like, I don't have to prove anything to myself or anyone else and just owning my worth as is without doing, achieving, producing, creating, like just my existence is good.
Mm. So this your wide open ego center that takes in all of this, I must prove, I must be the best, is my experience with my emotion wide open solar plexus. So I imagine that that is where your shadows show up, for at least for me. And it's also where I've drawn the most inspiration.
Yeah, it can lead to a lot of motivation when it's used in a positive context, right? And lift you up and give you energy. And at the same time, on the flip side of the coin, it can make you very psychotic, really intense about every single thing that you're doing when it like really does not need to be that intense. And it can make you put too much pressure on yourself.
It's so true. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like, you're not leading the Fortune 1 company here, Katie. It's going to be all right. And even if you
Yeah,
are,
exactly.
there's golden pair, maybe because there isn't the golden parachute like that company, I feel more stressed, right? Put me in charge of a major company where the worst thing that can happen is I get fired with lots of money and compensation. I'll be
Right. Oh,
fine.
that'd be so terrible. But yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I have a story that relates to this. So I recently started an Etsy shop because I like cannot find enough ways to like be creative and create and express myself. I was like, this will be a fun project. So I started the Etsy shop. And at first my intention was like, oh, if I just make like a little bit of extra money, like I would consider that successful. Like that would be cool. But then, of course, like 3 days in, like one weekend, I'm like, I got to be top 1% Etsy seller. There is no way this is only going to be a side hustle. I'm going all in. Like I've got to be the best at this or it doesn't even count. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. I was like, it's not that serious, Kelsey. Like, relax.
I have one hanging gate in that area, which means I will default there to showing how I can be great with resources. Give me a shoestring. Let me show you how I can make you a shoe. In fact, let me get you 2 shoes on that shoestring and I'll break myself in the process. And I am actually very good at that, but I don't have to prove it. And if I'm invited to share it, then it's great. But learning that is so freeing. And looking at your chart, we talk about these defined spaces as being someone that's earned a PhD in a previous life. And we talk about a wide open space as someone who's transcended, which is the emptying of wisdom. And you have every space defined except for this will center. So we're an 8-in-1 relationship. So that's why I know we're really going to have fun. And we're 2 5-1s. And this is the same center that my mom and I were an 8-in-1 relationship with as well. But growing up as a kid with my mom being an emotional, and she was the 55, so she hit my 39, I just rode her waves. And then she would tell me that I was emotional.
Bet you love that.
And my dad as well. And so learning that, well, that was just a freeing of like, that's what was happening. And also now I know how to enter a room and I know immediately when a 55 is in the room, if I'm coaching them, because by session 1, 2, or 3, I'll hear the phrase, I feel liberated. Without fail, I will hear the word liberated. And the 39 purpose, which is my purpose in relationships, is liberation.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes you great at your job.
It does. And the greatest liberation I can offer to a 55 is to get them out of the shadow of victimization, which is what the 55 is, which you don't have. So you ride these other waves.
Luckily. Dodge that one.
Dodge that one. So now, since you've learned that you're a 5-1, how has that changed your life at all? And how has it?
It's really validated how fast I can learn and how much I'm into learning and learning new information and skills and how well I can just integrate that and spit it back out. Like I can go from student to teacher very quickly in pretty much anything I'm excited to learn about, which is cool. And being like the challenge solver, as they call it, just makes a lot of sense in why I'm really into helping people make their lives easier, right? Like, are you having this emotional challenge? I can help you. Are you having this manifestation challenge? I can help you. Are you having these self-love blocks? I can help you through, a lot of experience, but also just a lot of learning and absorbing of wisdom and knowledge.
And so you call yourself a challenge solver. And I think that's the reason I have a degree in history. And so I'm a bit of a purist. I like to look at all the resources, but I also want to know the very first source. And so what they call us in the very first source is a heretic investigator.
Yeah, which sounds a little crazy, but kind of also resonates because I'm a little crazy.
So what was, for me, I am at they call it your deconditioning. You have 7 years to decondition once you've met this. And I found it in February of 2021. And I think 2024, this year my word was uncaged, but I really wasn't an uncaged heretic investigator. I was uncaged with my investigation, but I don't know that I was really, I'm still people pleasing. And people pleasing isn't there. I create transformation through silence. So sometimes that looks like avoidance, which looks like I'm just going to let you figure this one out versus being a heretic that we really are. And so heretic is something I'm trying to learn to embrace because whatever we're resisting is persisting. So I'm hereticing anyway.
Yeah. So how are you embracing that? Tell me more.
So I have little wins. For example, if I met a 5-1 manifestor, gave him his birth time. It was our very first session. He messaged me the corrected birth time, which was like 20 minutes off. And then he unmatched me and decided to go work with a different coach. And I was like, well, I'm working. I'm hereticking. And he ended up matching with lots of people. He's doing what manifestors do. Like they're just, sampling the generators and what the generators have to say. But part of that is like, so when I have client, like I let people go before they're ready to let me go. Sometimes I let them know. I allow myself to be the heretic. And I'm okay with it. I think that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah, I feel that makes sense.
Yeah, like walking in a room means that in some ways there will be people here who are going to never walk into this room again because I'm around. And it's probably doing people favors just because it's me. So I'm going to stick
Yeah, nothing wrong with being a little polarizing.
simply by being, right? Simply by being.
Yeah, it's true. I do feel like it's not always safe to be my full self in certain environments and contexts. So sometimes I guard my
Because you've
authenticity
got something to
just for sake of avoiding unnecessary conflict or conflict I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, well, we don't have, we don't have to be a heretic. We don't have to be a victim of or decide to follow the storyline that we have. The challenge solver for me, because I can solve it, because it is a challenge, sometimes the heretic thing to do is say that's not mine to solve.
Yeah.
It's a quiet hereticing.
I like it.
And also, if I do say something that I'm like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have landed it that way, I also recognize that actually that was probably the best because I gave them the most authentic self. My life's work is to be all-knowing, and so I like to also remind myself of that.
Yes. I mean, it's fun. The more perspectives you can take on, the more your consciousness grows. I feel like I never want to stop. I'm sure you never want to stop. That's why we just keep coming back, keep coming back, coming back, coming back.
We're designed for strangers, and to be strangers of consequence has really allowed me to embrace that I will be more powerful and seen by a stranger than I will a best friend.
Oh, that is so true. If I try to give my husband advice that will really land on one of my clients, no way. No way. He's like, shut up and get out. I'm like, okay, sorry, but I'm telling you, that would really work.
So when my husband would say, like, it's the delivery for me, is what Dan always says. It's the delivery for me. And I laugh because I'm like, well, it's the receiving for me on your end, but I also am a coach, so I just keep my mouth shut and I take a no. And I'm like, I need to remember he's a 3-5 and he needs praise and praise and praise and praise. And then I could say, where a client and I would just laugh about what I would say. I get to be the heretic, right? I'm here to point out what people don't want to see. And when we're invited to do that, it's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, when we're invited, it's definitely works out better.
And that's the hard part because we're here to respond, but we're also, and you have the emotional wave. I'm a sacral. My truth is in the now, and I'd like to share it with you, but I don't have that gate 20 that you have. So being around you, I'm just going to tell the truth more.
Tell me more about this gate 20 because I don't really know about it.
Well, that's what connects to your throat and makes you the manifesting generator. It says, I know or I don't know. It speaks in the now. So you've got this beautiful 57 energy that I have. It's a 5734 energy this is what people want to tap into us when they're around us, is this energy. The 57, if there is a tornado, everyone wants to stand next to you because it will hit everywhere but you.
Fascinating. I like that.
It speaks in the now. It just has a fear of the future. And so sometimes, that's the psychosis.
That's that anxiety, baby.
I have that same line and the same thing. And that's why we have to let it inspire us, and allowing ourselves to stay in the present is where most of the presents are for us. But
yes,
the 20 allows me to speak into my voice the truth. But it also is not my energy. And so I can be, it's a really great, you have the ability to sell people. I don't
Good to know.
I gotta plug my computer in.
Yeah, go for it.
So anything else that you've learned about being a 5-1 that's been interesting for you or life-changing?
I think it just makes sense when I look back at myself, where I was always taking information and then simplifying it and helping others with it. So even on the playground, for example, when we were learning multiplication, I don't know what grade that is, like second or third grade. And I had this friend Sammy Kim, shout out Sammy. And she was like, I don't get it. Like all day, the teacher was like explaining, like, this is what multiplication is. She's like, I just don't get it. Like, it's so confusing to me. And she was so frustrated. I was like, oh, I feel so bad for her. She's so frustrated. And I was like, hey, look at it like this. Multiplication is just when you add that number to itself, however many times you're multiplying it by. And I literally gave her just like a one liner and I could see it click in her head. And she was like, oh, why didn't the teacher just say that? You know, like teachers teach you on it for 6 hours and then I give it to her in 1 minute and she understands. And I think from that moment, I knew like, there's something here. The way that I can see and explain things is helping other people. And I love that because I take everyone in as a part of myself and I want them to feel better and do better, which is why I do the work that I do.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, that's the gift that gate 20 and that head together that you have of not only do you understand it, and we're only 30% of the population. We think differently than 70% of people. So you're thinking very differently than that teacher. And then you have the ability in that moment, as soon as someone asks for it, you're like, oh, here's what it is. That's that 5720 channel that you have. And for me, it lands like with the right people.
Yeah, for sure. Not with everybody.
Yeah. Well, so that energy that you also have is very intense. And so people, even when you don't speak or when you do, it's the vibration, it's the way it lands. That is a them problem. But it feels like an us problem because that's why you stay in the room and you're like, I can't be fully authentic because you can feel that this energy is going to be too much for people.
Yeah. And I used to date the wrong people and I would experience that a lot with my partners. And I was always too much for the wrong person. I was like, ugh, why am I so much? It's me. I'm the problem. No, I was never the problem.
It's funny. Taylor Swift is a 5-1. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. That song, Anti-Hero. Yeah. So it isn't like part of the fifth line is like familiarity breeds contempt. We're here for strangers with consequences. The more aligned we are with understanding that we have so much invitation energy about us. Even though we also we have this drive to solve.
It's true. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel like this too. Maybe this is a 5-1 thing, but I feel like all my life I've had this like invisible neon sign tattooed to my forehead that's like, ask me anything, tell me all your problems, I can help. And like literally strangers at bars, like random people in the airport, like people that I've just met 5 minutes ago are like, so what do you think I should do? Should I divorce my husband? I'm like, what? Like, I'm gonna need a little more context. And I don't know why you're asking me this. I'm not in a relationship, right? But it's like that, I don't know, that therapist energy, that coaching energy. And I'm also a hairstylist by trade. So I went to cosmetology school, which I always call therapy because, of course, I'm always holding space for people, solving their life problems while doing their hair. And it's just always been a thing.
Therapy. I love it.
Therapy. Yes.
So I often hear in coaching, because it's executive coaching, like, I'm sorry, this just feels like therapy. Am I doing this wrong? And like, it's therapeutic to be heard.
Yeah,
we're not doing therapy because we're not doing anything in the DSM right now. It's just very therapeutic. And we have this ability to not only hold that space, but we have the solutions. The fifth line is here to solve the world's problems.
Yeah, I like helping my clients with that. It's fun. Like when they come to me and then I get to be a professional space holder, that feels so great for me and for them. And then it's like, okay, now that we've processed some of that, we're feeling a little more regulated, we're feeling better. Let's think about some solutions, let's think of a new perspective that could work better in this situation or in your life in general.
This was a 5-1 journey, and naturally us 5-1s found each other. There's a lot of episodes on my podcast this season. I kicked it off with a 5-1. I continue to find accidentally 5-1. So Kelsey, thank you for this great bonus episode on a couple of 5-1s, just having a casual conversation. Make sure you head over to hear our main episode where you can hear about Kelsey's story of how she can take this very complex thing of healing emotions, explain it to you in a very simplistic way. One of my favorite tips she had in a blog I read was talking about saying I love you out loud to yourself. And what's hilarious is I do this all the time. And usually Dan's in the room and I have ADHD, so sometimes I'm not even aware. And sometimes I just say, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. But
I love you too. Like, wasn't talking to you, but that's okay.
It's something that's randomly just sort of poured out of me in the last since living alone and then moving in with Dan, I think after a divorce, perhaps that was one of the ways that I was loving myself, like just naturally. And I find that it's
Yeah.
fascinating that you have on your blog, because I think these defined heads that we have, like we do have some similar ways that we think, and it's really fun to just be around someone else that thinks the same way that you do. I rarely get that. So
Likewise, I rarely get that either. So thank you for seeing me, feeling me, hearing me, being in common with me. It's so fun.
super fun. Head over and check out our main episode.